Vienna, 1948. You watched him disappear. The man who spoke too freely, gone. His apartment door is sealed, scrubbed clean like he was never there. A new silent war has begun. This wasn't random. It was the precise work of an invisible machine, meticulously built to police not just borders, but the very thoughts in your head. Who built this continental prison? And what unspoken order made asterisk your own mind asterisk the battleground? The year is 1945. The Second World War is over, and the uneasy alliance that defeated fascism is crumbling into dust. At the Yalta and Potsdam conferences, the victorious leaders, Joseph Stalin, Harry Truman, and Winston Churchill, drew lines on a map, dividing the spoils of a world in ashes. But where the Western Allies saw lines of temporary military occupation, Stalin saw a permanent new frontier for his empire. The Soviet Red Army, which had been hailed as liberators, did not go home. Instead, they dug in, their tanks and bayonets propping up new puppet regimes from Poland to Bulgaria. On March 5, 1946, in a speech in Fulton, Missouri, Winston Churchill gave this new reality a name that would haunt generations. He declared that an iron curtain has descended across the continent. The construction of this curtain was not done with bricks and mortar, but with fear. Stalin's chief of secret police, the ruthless Lavrentiy Beria, exported the Soviet model of control with chilling efficiency. Across Eastern Europe, new state security forces were born, each a clone of the Soviet NKVD. The Stasi in East Germany, the Securitate in Romania, the AVH in Hungary. Their primary weapon was not the gun, but the file. They built a vast, suffocating network of civilian informants, a web of whispers that turned friends into spies and families into enemies. In East Germany, estimates suggest that at its height, 1 in every 7 citizens was an informant. This was the doctrine of salami tactics, slicing away opposition piece by piece until nothing remained. First, the non-communist parties were outlawed. Then their leaders were arrested. In September 1947, Bulgarian agrarian leader Nikola Petkov was subjected to a show trial and executed on fabricated charges of conspiracy. In February 1948, the democratic government of Czechoslovakia was toppled in a coup, not by Soviet tanks, but by internal subversion, political intimidation, and the mysterious death of its foreign minister, Jan Masaryk, who was found dead below his bathroom window. Every disappearance, every whisper was a warning. But arresting known enemies was not enough. To achieve total control, new enemies had to be created. In 1949, a clandestine campaign of alleged Western intelligence efforts, sometimes referred to as Operation Splinter Factor, aimed to exploit Stalin's paranoia and trigger purges within the Eastern Bloc. The operation's goal was to fabricate a massive international anti-communist conspiracy led by American diplomats and Titoist spies from Yugoslavia. The star victim was Laszlo Rajk, Hungary's own communist foreign minister. He was arrested, brutally tortured, and forced to confess at his public trial to being a lifelong agent for Western intelligence. His show trial was a macabre piece of theater, his confession a script written in Moscow. The true horror of Splinter Factor was not just that it was a lie, but that it was a lie used to justify the purge of thousands of loyal communists whose only crime was the potential for independent thought. The machine was now eating its own. The paranoia soon mutated, escalating from political purges to a war for the human mind itself. The West became obsessed with stories of brainwashing coming out of Soviet prisons and Korean POW camps, where men were seemingly broken and reprogrammed. This fear was not unfounded. In the Soviet Union, the state was perfecting a new form of terror, punitive psychiatry. Political dissidents, intellectuals, and artists who dared to step out of line were no longer just imprisoned. They were declared insane. They were locked away in psikhushkas, psychiatric hospitals, and forcibly treated with powerful, mind-altering drugs and electroshock therapy. The state was not just silencing dissent, it was medically redefining it as a symptom of mental illness. The legal architect of Stalin's purges, Andrei Vyshinsky, had established the principle that a confession was the ultimate proof of guilt, no matter how it was obtained. Now that doctrine was being applied to sanity itself. Your reality was whatever the state decided it was. The invisible machine of paranoia was about to produce its most monstrous physical creation. The first test came in 1948. In an attempt to force the Western Allies out of Berlin, Stalin blockaded all land and water routes to the city, hoping to starve its 2 million residents into submission. For nearly a year, the Berlin airlift kept the city alive, a dramatic standoff that brought the world to the precipice of nuclear war. But the true masterpiece of fear was yet to come. In the pre-dawn hours of August 13, 1961, the order was given. Under the watch of armed guards, workers began to unspool miles of barbed wire through the heart of Berlin, tearing streets in half, severing families, and trapping millions. This was the beginning of the Berlin Wall. It would soon evolve into a complex system of concrete walls, guard towers, and a mined death strip. The wall was not built to repel an invading army. It was the final, brutal admission that the entire system was a prison, its primary function now to keep its own desperate citizens from fleeing. The Schießbefehl, the official shoot-to-kill order for anyone attempting to cross, turned the border into a graveyard. The architects of this continental prison were never a small cabal of men meeting in a secret room. The true architect was an ideology of absolute control, a deep and corrosive paranoia that was baked into the very DNA of the Soviet system. The unspoken order that created the Iron Curtain was not a single command, but a simple, terrifying principle that governed every action. Trust no one, report everything, control all. The man who vanished from the street in Vienna was not the ultimate target. The target was you, the person who saw him disappear. The goal was to atomize society, to sever the bonds of trust between all people, leaving every individual isolated and powerless before the immense, watchful eye of the state. The Berlin Wall fell in 1989, and the Iron Curtain was torn asunder. But the methods of the machine it created did not vanish with the concrete and barbed wire. The real wall was never the one you could see. It was the one built inside the minds of millions, a permanent architecture of suspicion and fear. And the most haunting truth is this: once a system learns how to construct a prison for the human mind, it never truly forgets the blueprints.